Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I just hit record. Sometimes people can watch this later on our webinar website, which we host all of our webinars on, or if you just really need to see it again, which we love to, but want to take a moment to thank you. My name is Becky. I am the marketing director for Private Prep. And we know with COVID, there's a lot of restraints on your time right now. So we really appreciate your time with us and created this Thrive in 30 series to get you information quickly and effectively. So we're going to do this in 30 minutes and get you everything you need with our lovely guest. We got the questions you submitted before the webinar, so we're able to answer those. And then we will also take any questions during the chat as you think of them, but we'll answer them at the end of the presentation so that we get to hear from Jennifer the most, and use our time wisely. But to start, Private Prep created Performance Prep, which basically is a holistic approach to developing critical thinking skills for performing under pressure. So we worked this into all of our tutoring and basically anything we do with students at any time. And so one really big aspect of that, and an aspect that's become very important, is mindfulness. So we are very, very lucky to have Jennifer here. She is a mindfulness coach, and she has also started her own business in coaching with Superstar Coaching. And so we're very excited to have her here to talk about this, as she is an expert, and have her answer all your questions. So I'm going to turn it over to her. And once again, feel free to chat any questions you have. Thank you.
Thanks, Becky. Thank you for that lovely introduction, and welcome everybody. I'm super excited to be here, and I'm thrilled that you guys can join us tonight, and thank you for the questions. Hopefully I'll have answered a lot of it during the presentation, and if not, like Becky said, we're happy to answer Q&A at the end. So tonight, I wanted to spend the first couple of minutes explaining to you how I came to Koru mindfulness, because I think it's relevant for all of our kids. And then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of mindfulness, the what, why, and how of a mindfulness practice. And then I'm also going to teach you the #1 fundamental stress reducing technique that I'll teach you tonight, and you can hopefully bring home and teach to your kids. And then we'll just end with the Q&A. Okay, so I came to Koru mindfulness sort of serendipitously. I was coaching in New York, and it just seemed like the overarching theme of what all of the kids wanted to talk about was stress reduction. They were all feeling extremely stressed out, whether it was over school or college apps or family or friends or boyfriends, girlfriends, body image, whatever. It all boiled down to being super stressed out. So we would spend a lot of time on the really great traditional methods of stress reduction, right? Like exercise and playing sports and socialization and good nutrition and more sleep and on and on and on. And those are all really great, but I just felt like there had to be something else. And at the same time, my oldest son was starting his freshman year at Duke. And I was lucky enough on one of my trips down to Durham to be able to go on a tour and see some of the really amazing cutting edge things that Duke was working on behind the scenes. And one of those was the development of Koru mindfulness. And Koru was being developed by a group of the school psychologists, professors, and researchers that were all coming together because of the huge demand for mental health help for its students. The health center was literally being inundated with these high-performing, highly academic kids who were suffering so much from stress and anxiety because of all the pressure, external pressure, internal pressure, and for striving for perfectionism. So they came together and they developed this boiled down, really accessible practice that the kids could buy into because it was science-based and because it was just really practical in its thinking. And the results have been really incredible. I'm going to actually put up some data at the end of the presentation, but it seems to really, really work and resonate with this group, these kinds of kids. And that's That's core mindfulness. What I'm going to tell you about now is mindfulness in general. What is mindfulness? Mindfulness is the practice of focusing your awareness on the present moment without judgment. So that's a mouthful, so we'll break it down. The practice of focusing your awareness on the present moment without judgment. Practice meaning that we're all born with it, but doesn't come naturally to us, so we have to practice it. Focusing our awareness on the present moment, meaning exactly that, being in the present, being in the here and now, feeling present. And without judgment is very important, and that's the piece about not being self-critical and also learning to be just overall less judgmental. And I teach the kids that if you think about our elite athletes, it's a great way to think about mindfulness, especially the athletes that do practice mindfulness, like a LeBron James, who is obviously one of the greatest players of all time, but also practices mindfulness. And you can tell because for the 48 minutes that he's on the basketball court, he is lasered in on nothing except the basket, the ball, and the hoop. And he is what they call in sports in the zone. Another great example is Jimmy Butler on the Miami Heat. He's one of the most phenomenal free throw players. And that's because when he's at the free throw line, there's no loop of thought going on in his mind that resembles, oh my gosh, what if I don't make the shot? What if my teammates are mad? What if the fans boo? What if we lose the game? What if we don't make the playoffs? There's none of that going on in his mind when he is shooting free throws. He again is in the zone, like they say in sports. Victoria Azarenka, another phenomenal athlete who practices mindfulness, she will tell you when she is being particularly mindful, the tennis ball actually looks twice the size of a regular tennis ball, and it's almost impossible for her to miss the shot. These are obviously just really extreme examples of mindfulness, but we can all do it. And yeah, so those are mindful athletes. When we say LeBron James, for example, I don't have the kids focus on the fact that he wants to win the game. I want to focus on the fact that he wants to make each shot and play his best offensively and his best defensively, right? So for the kids, I tell them to focus less on your scores and what schools you want to go to, but really focus on doing your best every day on whatever tests or whatever homework. And then what happens is the goal that you've set just naturally, organically comes. So the idea is to just do your best in the present moment. And why do I want your kids to become mindful? I'm going to give you the big picture why, and I'm going to give you the small picture why. The big picture why and why your kids to become more mindful is because when we can be in the present moment, we stop dwelling on things that happened in the past, and we stop ruminating about things that might possibly one day happen in the future. And when we can stop doing both of those things, we have less stress, we have less anxiety, we sleep better, we're better at our day-to-day activities, we're more compassionate, we're more resilient, we're less judgmental, we have better memory, we have better focus, and on and on and on. And I want that for all of our kids. The small picture why is because when your kids are taking tests, when they're taking their AP exams, when they're taking the SAT, and especially with the ACT, where timing is so crucial and so critical, I want them to be calm and I want them to be focused, because it doesn't matter if they're the fastest reader in the room or if they're the slowest reader in the room. If they can be the calm, focused reader in the room, then they won't read that passage on space travel 2, 3, and 4 times, because that's what those passages are designed for. Same with math. If you don't have the strongest math student, if they see a page or two of very elaborate math problems and they start to have that loop of thought of, oh my gosh, I'm not a great math student, I'm never going to get these, I should have slept more, I should have eaten more, I'm terrible at math, then that's not going to help them succeed in the math section. If they can come in being mindful and present and focused and calm, then it will be no problem. So that's why I want your kids to become more mindful. Big picture and small picture. So how is a big question. How do we get our kids to become more mindful? And it's three-pronged, you'll see up on the screen. We do it through mindfulness activities, we do it through meditation, and we do it through practicing gratitude. And I'm going to explain each one and show you how it all sort of comes together. So mindfulness activities train our brains to focus on one thing at a time by building up our mindfulness muscle. And we would do this the same way you'd build up any other muscle in your body. If you went to the gym, you would start out small and you would add more weight. So with mindfulness activities, we start off small and we just add more time. So we start with simple exercises. And the first one that I usually teach the kids, which I'll teach you tonight and you can teach your kids, is brushing your teeth, because it's an activity that we all do and hardly any of us pay attention to it. So tonight you can go home, you can go into the bathroom, and when you're brushing your teeth, just try to pay attention to brushing your teeth. And what's going to happen in a matter of a second is your mind is definitely going to wander, because that's what our minds do. We have upwards of 10,000 thoughts every single day. So your mind will definitely wander. And the practice is to just bring it back to the activity of brushing your teeth. And when it wanders again, just simply bring it back to brushing your teeth. Remember that it takes practice and no judgment. And I'll tell you that a great hack for trying any of these activities mindfully is to engage more of your senses, because we do tend to just sort of use our eyes. So if you can hone in on some more of your senses, that helps you to be more present. So for brushing your teeth, for example, you can listen. If it's an electronic toothbrush, you can listen for the noise. You can smell the minty toothpaste. You can feel the bristles on your tongue and on your teeth, right? And then you can look at the color of your toothbrush. I bet right now, probably only maybe a handful of you can actually tell me the color of your toothbrush. So that's just a great way of starting to become more present and more focused. So you can do it with brushing your teeth, you can do it with washing your hair, you can do it while you're walking the dog. But the idea is to just start thinking about doing one thing at a time. We all know that we're really actually pretty good at multitasking, or we think we're really good at multitasking, because we can sit with our computers open, we can be working on a project, we can have Netflix on TV, we can be, on our phones having a chat, and we can also be eating dinner, right? All at the same time. The problem is that we think that our brain is focusing on one thing and then moving to the next thing, but it's really not. Our brains are just bouncing around like this, not really being able to focus on one thing or giving it our 100% attention. We know this because if we're doing all those things at the same time, it's taking us longer to write the paper. We don't really know what we wrote, and we're still hungry even though we just ate, right? Because our brain is not recognizing all of it or doing any of it at 100%. So anything that we are able to give our sole attention to, we will do better. And this same theory goes for test taking. So I want your kids to be able to, when the time comes, to be able to just focus on the test that they're taking, or the homework that they're completing, or the paper that they're writing. The second part of how we do this is meditation. And I will tell you that when I was learning Koru mindfulness, I was a little bit skeptical about the meditation piece, because I did have a lot of misconceptions about meditation. I thought that it had to do with, religion or spirituality, or you had to be really good at yoga, or you had to spend a whole lot of time, sitting in quiet in the corner with candles. And it really doesn't have anything to do with any of those things. Meditation is really just another mindfulness exercise, except instead of focusing on the activity, you're focusing on your breathing. And since we always have our breath, you can literally meditate anywhere. You can do it on a yoga mat, on the floor, but you can meditate in bed. You can meditate, on a plane, on a train. You can meditate on the golf course. You can meditate, while you're walking. You can really meditate anywhere. Again, it's really just about paying attention to your breathing. And we're going to talk a little bit more about meditation because it really is the cornerstone of mindfulness. Not only does it help you with your focus, but it also teaches us how to breathe more effectively, which I'm going to teach you next. And it also really, really importantly, helps us start to think about those 10,000 thoughts that I mentioned earlier. We start to recognize them and realize that they are just thoughts. Oftentimes we have these obsessive loops and patterns of thought going on in our mind. And when we're able to meditate and really pay attention to our thoughts, we realize these are really just thoughts. And at some point, we're able to just let them go. So that's why meditation is really important. Okay, so as promised, right now I'm going to take a little break and teach you, because we started talking about breathing, I'm going to teach you the #1 fundamental stress reducing technique. Okay, before we do that, I would like everybody to just become a little bit familiar for 10 seconds with how you naturally breathe. So you can just place a hand, on your chest if you'd like. You can gently close your eyes. I invite you to do that. And just for 10 or 15 seconds, just try to pay attention to your breath. Just breathe in and breathe out. And breathe in and breathe out. And I will tell you while you're breathing and paying attention to your breath that most of us are naturally chest breathers. And this is why when we are feeling stress and anxiety, we tend to feel a natural tightness in our chest. We feel a constriction because that's where the breath is. What I'm going to teach you now is how to become a diaphragmatic breather, which means breathing through your diaphragm. So you can open your eyes, and I will show you how I teach kids so you can teach your children. But if you just press your fingers under your sternum, stand up a little in case you can't see, under your sternum, and you make a quick hissing sound like a snake, like this, your diaphragm automatically just pops out. And that's how I teach the kids to find their diaphragm. So any of you who may be musicians, you know how to breathe through your diaphragm. You may not know the health benefits of it, but you know how to breathe through your diaphragm. For any of us who have been trained to really hold in our stomachs, it's a little bit more challenging, but with practice, you can do it. Everybody can do this. So this time around, I'm going to have everybody place their hands on their diaphragm. And I want you to just imagine a balloon inflating and then a balloon deflating. When you breathe in, you're going to inflate your diaphragm. When you breathe out, you're going to deflate your diaphragm, and you're going to just set your hands right there so you can just feel it, and you're going to really have to push it out to start because it doesn't come naturally. And you can gently close your eyes, and this time, when you inhale through your nose, I want you to really try to extend your diaphragm. And then when you exhale, have it deflate. I want you to practice this for about a minute. And while we're doing this, I'm going to tell you exactly what is going on inside of your body right now. While you're breathing in, oxygen is coming into your brain, into your body. You're reducing your heart rate. You're lowering your blood pressure. You're stimulating your immune system. And you're activating your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of your nervous system that is responsible for keeping you calm. Breathe for another few few seconds. And I'm going to repeat all of that. You're bringing oxygen into your brain, into your body. You're lowering your heart rate. You're reducing your blood pressure. You're stimulating your immune system. And you're activating your parasympathetic nervous system, which calms you. You are automatically, biologically, undeniably reducing your anxiety on the spot. You can do this anytime you're having trouble falling asleep. You can do this anytime you're feeling anxiety. And your children should absolutely do this anytime they're about to go in to take a test. When we teach meditation to the kids, we have them just start for a minute. Just practice this for 1 minute. And then we add on gradually, 5 minutes. Optimum is 10 minutes, but we start off small. Focusing on our breathing, focusing on our thoughts, practicing letting our thoughts go. And it helps when you're breathing to just count to 3 on the inhale. Try to hold it for 3, and then exhale for 3. And the third piece of our puzzle, you'll see up on the chart, is gratitude. And we practice gratitude because we are all born with what is known as a negativity bias. And it stems from all the way back to the caveman times when we needed to be on high alert because there were dinosaurs and there were poisonous mushrooms and there were all kinds of treacherous things. And our fight or flight reflex was super, super fine. And since then, we still focus way, way more on the negative and not very much at all on the positive. So we need to try to balance that out, and we do that by practicing gratitude. I can give you an example of a negativity bias is when we're just fed a constant feed of negative news and nobody ever talks about anything positive. Negativity bias is if you throw a party and it's a fabulous success, except for one little part that only you knew went wrong, but that's the only part that you can focus on. Negativity bias is when your kids have, super duper grades and then they have one off day and they get a B, and that's all they can focus on. That's the negativity bias. So it's really, really, really important that we make a concerted effort to balance out our negative thoughts with positive thoughts. And when I teach this to the kids, we practice physically writing down, either in a physical journal or on an app on their phones, 3 things every single day that they are grateful for. And it's not just good enough to say my friends or my family. We get very, very specific. You have to explain what is it that you're really grateful for, because the more specific you get, the more it resonates with you. So we'll talk about, you're appreciative of, your family's unconditional love, or you're grateful for your friend's sense of humor. The more specific we can get, the more important it is. And this allows your brain to really hone in on the things that are really good in your lives and the things that make you happy. And when we're happier, we put out more positive energy into the world and we receive more positive energy back. And when we are happy, we are less stressed. So we really, really have to learn and teach ourselves to pay attention to the positive things in our lives. So those are the 3 components of how: mindfulness activities, meditation, and practicing gratitude. And those are really the ingredients that make the special sauce of Koru mindfulness. To wrap up, I'm just going to spend a few minutes just telling you some of the other things that we talk about in a Koru class. We talk about how to get unstuck when kids are really stuck in the mud, we call it, or spinning their wheels on something, on an obstacle that they just can't overcome. And I teach them the acronym STOP, which you can teach your kids tonight. It's just a really great fundamental acronym for getting unstuck. And it stands for STOP. Literally just stop what you're doing. Take your 3 deep diaphragmatic breaths. then observe what the trouble is, what the obstacle is, and then the P is, plan, proceed, come up with your plan. And just knowing that they can stop, take a few deep breaths, and then reset, goes a really, really long way. It's really effective with the kids. We talk a lot about balancing the thinking mind with the observing mind because there's an imbalance. The observing mind is really key because the observing mind focuses on facts. And our thinking mind, and this goes for everybody, our thinking mind is just based on judgments and opinions. And that's the bulk of what we think about all day. And I teach the kids if they could just think of a lot of these thoughts as just clouds that are passing by, just clouds, vapor, literally, that's just passing by. It helps them to not hold on to every single thought so tightly. They're able to let a lot of things go. And that's really important. And to think more with their observing mind, really base a lot more of what they're thinking on fact and a lot less on just quick judgments. I also teach the kids that one of the biggest freedoms they have is being able to choose how you want to react in certain situations. That you don't always have to act instinctually or habitually or the way somebody would react on TV. That you actually have the ability to opt in any number of ways in a situation. And the idea is to act in a way that serves you best. So I give them the example of, if I'm sitting in traffic, and it's one of the things that used to just like really irk and irritate me. And you can get yourself super worked up over sitting in traffic, and you're sort of fed the belief that you should be angry and you should really just be irate and, inconsolable when you're sitting in a terrible traffic jam. But if you sort of flip that and you can say to yourself, okay, let me make 2 quick phone calls, let people know I'm not going to be where I'm supposed to be, and then use that time to do something that you never seem to have the time for, then it's a better use of your time. It's a better way to sort of think about sitting in traffic. You can, sing out loud to the radio. You can call people that you never have a chance to talk to. You can work on your to-do list. You can do any number of things. You don't have to act angry. So I teach them that's, a really big freedom. I teach them that sometimes you have to just sit with your discomfort. You don't always have to solve it on the spot. You can just sit with it, and that's okay. And then we do a whole bunch of other really fun meditations. We do a walking meditation, which is important when you're just too antsy to lay down or sit down. We teach a walking meditation. We teach dynamic breathing, which is the opposite of diaphragmatic breathing. Dynamic breathing is when you have a paper to write or you have a test to study for and you're just exhausted and you just can't get it together. And it's literally a different way of sort of pumping oxygen into your body. And we teach that. I teach a mantra, or in meditation, we call it a gatha, which are just some really strong key words that are helpful to focus on when you need a strong anchor. And that's when your mind is really, really racing and the loop is being very obsessive and you really want to just sort of separate yourself from that. And that's really effective also. We do some guided imagery. We talk about labeling our thoughts and feelings. And I always end with an eating meditation because that's super fun. And also a little nod to nutrition. So that's basically what we cover. You can see up in here, it's a four 45-minute class, small groups, because kids always like to do activities like this together. And they use the Koru app, which is, super user-friendly and techy. So kids are excited about that. We use that to keep our journal and our logbook, and they can also communicate with me during the 4 weeks that they're working. And that is Koru mindfulness in a nutshell. I would just like to end by saying I wish all of your kids, lots of happiness and success in whatever they are looking for.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so great to have you. We will be emailing out some information about this so everyone can see that as well. But wanted to check really quick to see if we have any questions. So I'm going to stop this. I don't see any right now, but if anyone has any questions they want to write in, But until then, we just want to say thank you all for joining us once again. We know you have a lot of places to be and things to do, and really just thank you, Jennifer, for joining us, because we really, really appreciate having you here.
Thanks, Becky.